Now, newly leaked VBS Mutual Bank statements obtained by Daily Maverick reveal how alleged VBS fixer and former ANC Youth League Limpopo leader Kabelo Matsepe enriched himself. Daily Maverick's investigative unit, Scorpio, has found that Matsepe spent more than 35.4 million rand, allegedly stolen from the vulnerable Limpopo depositors and municipalities. Investigative journalist at the Daily Maverick, Pauli who wrote the story, now joins us via Skype for more on this story. Pauli, good morning. Thank you so very much for joining us from Cape Town. Now, the link between VBS and the EFF has been established. The link between the ANC structure, the Treasurer General, its deputy, was in fact also established. This is the first time we hear of a former Youth League member. What is significant about what you have found, and where was it hidden in the report? Are these in the annexures that the information is coming out, or have you got bank statements to give us the trail of how the money went?
Morning, Karima and Peter and our listeners. So let's look at Mr. Kabelo Matsepe's role in the whole VBS saga. He was the fixer, so his role was to coerce municipalities to invest money into VBS Bank, even though it was against the Municipal Finance Management Act. Now, when people didn't really want to do that, or certain municipal managers were hard to convince, he had to pay bribes. So that's what the Mutal report into VBS found. Now, where did I find the information? It is extra bank statements and documents that weren't in the report that were necessarily annexes and appendixes to this report.
Now, Peter, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, no, Pauli, hi. Another lovely piece of writing on VBS, but you say you've got you say in the top of your story and on Maverick that these findings have actually been published in the Great Bank House, this Terry Mutal's report. And I think I'm probably asking Karima's question as well. Have you just been reading the report harder and more carefully, or is there something new here that isn't in the report?
So there's the amounts that was spent and what it was spent on is new information. We didn't know that before. But we knew about the fixer, we knew about the role players. And I realized, I went back to the VBS report and I realized that journalists didn't really cover it fairly well. It was a news blip on the radar. Our news cycle is so quick and there's so much happening in the country that we tend to cover a certain theme or a story and then we move on to the next. So what I did was to properly read through the report, and I am busy, and I will write and publish a few more stories on this matter, but I'm busy sort of highlighting the main characters in the VBS saga. So really, who were the central people stealing the money from the poor in Limpopo and the poor municipalities in the northern part of the country.
Pauli, I want to ask you, what is interesting in your story is that this former ANC Youth League leader actually presented himself in a process where the bank had to decide who to pay. And he demanded more than even the municipalities. I think what he demanded, 21 million rand. How did he even get to be that brazen? And just tell our viewers whether he was paid, because we know, of course, municipalities were not reimbursed, but poor gogos and people who are involved in funeral covers and so on were reimbursed. Why did he feel that he could get away with presenting himself as a creditor that needs to be paid as the liquidation process is being wrapped up at VBS?
So as you say, there's a liquidation process of the whole VBS bank, which means that creditors must come and prove a case to the master of the High Court in Polokwane, who will then decide that they have a relevant case, that they are owed certain monies, and that they should be paid out a certain amount from all the assets recovered by the liquidators and the curators of VBS Bank. Now, Mr. Kabelo Matsepe then argued in front of the master of the High Court in Polokwane that he was still owed 21 million rand in commissions. Now, if we read commissions, we must also realize that the Mutual report describes this as bribes. It's not commissions as we know it. It's not legal. So Mr. Kabelo Matsepe has always denied that there's any wrongdoing, that he had, that he had contravened any acts or laws. And he feels this is owed to him.
Mm-hmm. What is really interesting for me, Pauli, in this story, you really break it down. So, for example, he acquired a Jeep and he went through a supposed loan agreement. And you can tell our viewers what the Jeep cost. And you can also tell us whether he's ever paid a cent on that Jeep. So how did these loan agreements serve as excuses for people to actually loot the bank?
Yes, so it was a Range Rover, a Land Rover Range Rover for 2.39 million rand. So the other reason why I used Mr. Kabelo Matsepe at the moment is that he is such a simple but yet effective example of what exactly happens in the bank. So the Mutual report tells us that the money was extracted from the bank in various ways. Now, one of the most effective ways were loan agreements, either to, vehicle financing or home agreements or, property agreements and so on. So there would be typical quintessential loan agreement or a vehicle finance agreement. All the documents and the paperwork would look legit. But if you go and look, if this beneficiary of the vehicle finance, in this case, Mr. Kabelo Matsepe, if he has serviced the loans, you would realize that there's no money going back to the bank. So this is, in fact, not a loan agreement known by the ordinary citizens or the law-abiding citizens in South Africa. It's not. It was, in fact, a way to extract money from the bank. Pauli? So he never paid. Yes, Peter.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask before we wrap, if it's as easy for you, not easy, but this is obviously the result of a lot of hard work. You've done this now. This is the second one of these that I've seen from you. How easy, in your view, would it be for a halfway decent prosecutor to read the Mutual report, read the footnotes, read the annexures, and come to the conclusion that, here are a couple of ready-made, sort of ready-to-go
NPA dockets.
NPA dockets. I mean, this report must be full of them.
Absolutely, Peter, that's such a good question. The VBS saga is not difficult to follow. If you have the relevant documents and if you have the bank statements like I do in this case, it's very easy to see that there's money coming in, that Mr. Matsepe didn't really have any, service that he rendered. The service in this case is straight against the POCA and PRECA, the corruption and fraud acts in this country, and therefore it must be questioned. Now, it's not difficult to follow the money. It's not difficult to have knowledge and a background knowledge of the facts and the law. So it's clearly not very difficult to prosecute and investigate this matter.
All right, that's probably the first question that we will ask the newly appointed director when that person gets appointment. Thank you very much, Pauli. After the break, we will, of course, talk to you about the newspaper headlines with the senior reporter at EWN.